Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thought Bubble. We are a show created by the National Healthy Schools Collaborative. We are a youth council of 17 members, me being one, and I will be your host today. I'm Emily Contos, coming to you from Akron, Ohio. As a youth council, our goal, we have been working for the past year to learn more about mental health in our school systems and ways to improve those. If you want to check out our recommendations, you can go to www.thrivingschools.kaiserpermanente.org. Now, I'm super excited to introduce the guest we have for our episode today. It is my principal and my pleasure to announce Thomas O'Neill, the principal of Akron Early College High School. How are you today, Mr. O'Neill?
I'm good, Emily. Thank you. Thank you for
Of
that warm.
course. I'm super excited to get into this. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. O'Neill for 4 years now, and he has helped me tremendously throughout my high school experience. And I believe our school is a great role model of what mental health for students should be. And I just kind of want to start off by asking you, Mr. O'Neill, how do you, on a daily basis, connect with your students as a principal?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I've always felt that you have to kind of have a teacher mentality as a principal, and remember why you get an education in the first place. If you're a principal and you're sitting at a desk all day and behind closed doors, you're never going to connect with teachers or students. So you have to be out. You have to be really intentional about being out in the school and having conversations with students, with teachers, organic conversations, and that means again those are things that just take place throughout the day. But you have to put yourself in those situations to do that. And myself, and that, Emily, I have an open door policy where any student at any time is welcome to come in and have a conversation, and it could be about something important or it could be just about how's your day going, but and that goes not just for me but anyone in our office, administrative office, that we all try to have that open door policy for students, because we know that our program can be stressful, it can be tough, and sometimes students just need an adult to talk to, to listen. So it's kind of more organic. I wouldn't say it's something that's like a structured process, but it's more of
Yeah,
a culture and climate that we try to
yeah,
build.
absolutely. I come and talk to you every day, pretty
Yep.
much.
Yes.
um, but with that and being connected, how do you think our schedule and our curriculum as a school also really caters to mental health and what we provide for our students, such as activities like voice and choice or those after school things?
Yeah, so we once again we really try to be intentional about providing students with opportunities just to be kids outside of the classroom, and so we have something called Voice and Choice. Emily just mentioned, where that's 1 hour a week where students and teachers get to come together and really just do something they enjoy doing, non-academic. We've had a gardening club. We've each staff member sponsors a club, and then the students sign up for that club. And we've running club, a gardening club, a yoga club, Twilight Zone club, poetry club, retro video gaming. And the idea behind it is that it's something that just for that hour that kids can be kids, and then also teachers can do something they enjoy doing. It's a marriage between the two. And I always say that we want to make sure that the teacher enjoys that too, that it's something they're passionate about, so that they can really, that passion can come through to the students. And there's really something for everybody. So that's something that's structured in our program. And then fortunately, we have a very hardworking staff that does a lot of things outside the workday. So we have multiple clubs and activities that take place every day after school. And we're a smaller school with approximately 400 students, but we probably have over 200 students that attend clubs and activities on a daily basis throughout the week. So that's something too we really encourage students to become involved in, to get involved in, to connect to the school, to connect to their classmates. And for us, it definitely works.
Yeah.
Getting involved.
And you mentioned definitely passionate and making sure that our teachers are passionate about what they're doing, whether it's you teaching, whether it's your seminar class, or you being a principal, what makes you passionate about helping your students?
Yeah, it's funny, Emily, you mentioned that. I didn't mention that before, but when you said connecting the students, I feel it's very important that, as a small school, that I can teach a class once a week, so that students see me as a person, as a teacher, not just a distant principal. So I do teach a class once a week, and Emily had me in that class last year. It's a support class for our juniors, where we meet once a week and talk about our transition between high school and college. Our counselor teaches a senior seminar, which is very similar to that. So she's with our students once a week in that class. And then our assistant principal teaches an ACT prep class once a week. So we're all out in the classrooms once a week with students, and they get to see us in a different light. So, I mean, that's also important. And that is something structural that's built in our program intentionally. And I was told when I got the job as principal, because I did that as an assistant principal, that I would be too busy to do that. And I fought the person really hard on that. I said, it's important. I want our students to see me outside the office and see me as not just a principal, but as a teacher. So, and Emily, I forgot the first part of that question since I went down that, but I think that's important that's noted, because I think that's important too. And I see a lot of schools, that maybe could do those things that don't do them. And I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, I know your seminar class was definitely a motivational time for me in the morning. Hearing a speech or seeing a motivational video every day kind of kick-started things off for the week. But even with all this great implements that we have and activities and things for students, not every school is perfect. So, what do you think is a common misconception between youth and administrators that students hold towards our administrators?
Yeah, that's a good question, Emily, because it is as hard as we try, and you're right. And I always say that about our school, because I love our school, and you know that. But and you probably remember me saying this, Emily. I always say our school is a great school, but it's not a perfect school, because you're right. There are no perfect schools. Um, Having said that, I think one misconception sometimes among students is that adults can fix everything, and we can't. Sometimes there are things that just they are what they are, and we have to try our best to make them, to maybe make them better. But there are problems and solutions that none of us really have the answers to, and as long as we're trying to work towards a better school and a better situation for everyone, I think that's the main thing. But there are definitely things that the systems and structures in place that can't be fixed. Unfortunately, that are above our control.
Mhm.
That's not always an easy message for students to hear, but I think as you grow into adulthood, we're I think we're also doing our students a disservice if they don't come to that understanding as a younger person. There's some things you just have to really just accept for what they are and make the best out of them as we move on.
Yeah. And I mean, that brings me to another point of I feel our school has such a good foundation of dealing with social media and having such a positive outlook. Just from your experience, dealing with social media, is it something that is a challenge? Is it something that you've just come to accustomed to with having to deal with that?
I think one thing we do as a school is we do a good job, especially in our freshman and sophomore classes, our staff, especially our seminar classes, trying to educate students on the positive and negative side to social media, and definitely trying to encourage students to use that social media for good things, and to try to stay out of you know the pitfalls of social media that can really create a lot of unneeded drama and stress for everyone involved. So again, unfortunately, we live in a world where that's not going to go away, and
Hmm.
you can't control it, but you can try to educate students about it. And
Yeah.
I think the main thing is just trying to educate students about respect, because
Hmm.
if students understand respect and they understand what it means to respect their fellow classmates and respect their staff, then they're going to do the right thing on social media.
Yeah. And you mentioned there are things that just can't be changed and some things that adults can't help. But as in your position, how do you feel in your role you help or advocate for students' mental health?
Um, I think it goes back to again trying to find I feel like in our school, I want every student in our school to feel like there's something for me. Whether it's one day a week where I go to an after school club where I can really just connect with students that are like me, or an interest I have that really connects with me. And maybe it's one of those voice and choice clubs. Maybe it's an after school club. Maybe it's also just a teacher that I identify with, that I really connect with, that I feel like I can have a relationship with, as a support. And it could be a teacher, it could be an administrator, it could be a counselor. I think we create a culture and climate in our building where I think every one of our staff members champions, um, at least a group of our students. And, and I think again that goes back to a culture and climate, that it's something that it just doesn't happen. I mean, you need to work at it. You need to develop that culture, that climate. And I always say this, that there's never a student that leaves our program that fails in our program without everybody from myself down to the lunch lady that hasn't tried to help that student in some way. And that's our mission. That's our goal.
And I mean, we don't have the same experience as most high school kids do, but I feel that our staff has done such an amazing job of giving us those pep rallies and those little breaks in between to make us feel like those regular high school students. But what do you think, like, is our biggest social challenge as a school that kind of sets us apart from other high schools?
Yeah, I think, and you know this very well. You probably know what I'm going to say, Emily, is that we are such a high performing school, and we are such an accelerated school, that there's also a lot of stress that comes with that. Our students do take their classes very seriously. They take their grades very seriously, and with that adds a lot of pressure, a lot of stress to succeed. And so, trying to give our students a chance just to be a high school student, just to be a kid, and to try to have that balance, it's tough. So throughout the years, we have tried to integrate, like you mentioned, our pep assemblies, which we have great pep assemblies here. We do our lock-ins, in the fall and the spring. We do our dances. We do, as many of those things as we can to try to let students just be students, for a short time, even if it's just a short time, just to get away from the academics and the stresses and the pressures. And then, on the academic side, we do try to really teach time management skills, organizational skills, all those things. Mentoring program. Emily's one of our mentors. We have a senior to freshman mentoring program. Trying to really, we feel that if students can be organized, if they can use that time management, that is going to lessen their stress. And that's part of maturing into an independent learner and a college student, and all those things that we know are going to help them be successful when they leave our program.
And I mean, for me, the culture at our school is really the diversity and the things that you all provide for us as a staff. But in terms of culture, what would you say, like, is the biggest thing for you, or has, like, helped you develop the culture at our school?
I just think the buy-in from staff and students and parents and families, that this is a positive place. It's a place that we are going to respect each other. We're going to accept each other. And I've been in education for 32 years, and I've been to a lot of other schools. I've never been to a school like this. And we're fortunate. Like I said, we have a lot of parent support. We have good students come to the school. However, that needs to be fostered. It still needs to be, something that, like I keep going back to culture and climate, something needs to be nurtured. And I think we do a good job of that, from the administrators to our staff and to our student leaders. I think our student leaders do a nice job of really mentoring for our younger in very formal ways, like I mentioned, Emily's a mentor in our program, but also informal ways. I think our upperclassmen do a good job of mentoring to our younger students what it means to be an early college student and what that's all about. We have posters up in all our classrooms, and it says, how do you get from here to there? And it has a picture of a silhouette of a student, and it has all those characteristics that we want our students to be by the time they graduate from our program. And so we constantly reinforce those ideas to our students. We do it, we display it, we model it. Our students, our upperclassmen model it, and it works.
And I know for me, being a mentor has been such a rewarding experience, is hearing these freshmen stories and understanding like they were in the same position I was, and that I'm able to provide that advice for them. And we are such a different school, and there are social challenges. And you mentioned the fact that, we are more of a stressful program as we are taking college classes. But aside from the academic pressure that we might have us on our school, why do you think sometimes our school is such a pressing concern or can be a heavy weight for students?
Um, well, I think there's a lot of things going on outside the walls of our school that first of all that all students are facing. And our world is changing dramatically. Technology has changed. Um, attitudes and
Mm.
thought processes have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. So, and some of our students are coming from trauma, from places of
Mm.
trauma. So there's just a lot of stuff that's outside of our walls that also comes into the school. And then on top of that, you couple that with the pressure to succeed, the pressure to make parents proud, make teachers proud. And it's tough. It's tough for anybody, but especially for a 15, 16-year-old student
Yeah.
to try to navigate that and then come out and be well adjusted and be
Hmm.
successful and all those things we want them to be.
Yeah.
And
And
and one thing too, we have a staff of we have 400, approximately 400 students, and we have I think 12 teachers and 4 office staff. So we're servicing 400
mhm.
students with just 16 adults. So that can be challenging too. So
Yeah, and I mean, there really, with our staff, there really is someone for everyone in a sense of connecting. But also, we have an amazing support system at Akron Early College. And like you said, as a 14, 15-year-old, it's kind of hard to navigate, and we provide so much support. But how do you really get those kids to be encouraged by that support and really want them to ask for help, even though it may be difficult for them?
yep, that's always also somewhat of a challenging endeavor because again, it's as a 14, 15-year-old student who can be intimidated. One thing, Emily, and this is something I started when I took over as principal, is after the first 9 weeks of school, I bring in every freshman into the office and I make them sit down across from me, and I introduce myself to them and they introduce themselves to me. I ask them how things are going at early college after the first 9 weeks. I ask them what they like about our program. I ask them what their challenge, what challenges they're facing, um, and if there's anything I can help them with. And then they walk down the hallway and they meet Mrs. Katran, our assistant principal, and she gives them the same kind of I don't know, introduction. But the reason we do that, and again, that's another intentional thing we do, is to make students understand that this is a place of help, and everyone here is here to help you, not just teachers, but
Mm.
office staff, support staff. There's a culture of help here, and we want students to know that as soon as they get into our program. So, those are things we do, we try to do, and then the seminar classes, like you mentioned, Emily. We have a freshman seminar, we have a sophomore advisory, junior seminar, senior seminar. So students are constantly being reminded in those seminar classes where to go for help, how to seek out help if you need it, and
Mhm.
those things. And then our teachers do a great job in the classroom. I mean, we do a lot of collaborative activities. You probably remember from your high school classes that there's a lot of cooperation and cooperative learning, collaboration. So
Mhm.
at a young age, our students know that they're not in this alone. They're with their staff, they're with fellow classmates, that they're never going to be alone in this program. And so those are things that are intentional, put in place, so that students know that there is a culture of help here and that they're never going to be alone in our program.
All right, and one last thing I want to ask you, Mr. O'Neill, is what advice, whether it's to the youth or whether it's to our administrators or policymakers across the country, what advice would you give them for creating this support and culture in a school?
Well, I would say for the upper administrators, that are policymakers, that you got to get into schools. You got to see what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of policy that's being made from people that haven't been in a school in probably 20 years, haven't been in a classroom in 20 years. And so if you really want to know what's going on and know what some of the issues are, you need to get into the schools. You need to I always say, get into the trenches, because you can't diagnose a problem from 100 miles away in a government office, or even 2 miles away in an administrative office. So you need to get out and talk to the people that are there every day, the teachers, the staff members, the students, administrators, and to work side by side with them, to really see what the problems are, and then to try to brainstorm with them and with the professionals that are in the field, to see how we can best service those students.
All right, Mr. O'Neill, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today, and I'm so super duper excited to share our school and our culture with many other people across the country. But I also want to thank everybody again for tuning into this week's episode of The Thought Bubble. Again, we are the National Healthy Schools Collaborative Youth Council, and if you want to learn more about our mission and our goal, you can find more about that at www.thrivingschools.kaiserpermanente.org. And if you like what you see, you can check out our newsletter on there as well. But thank you again, Mr. O'Neill, for joining us today. And
Thanks, Emily.
of course.